You wouldn't think the world's most terrifying warriors needed a cat nap, but they did. I'm your bedtime historian, and tonight, you'll rise not with a yawn, but with a war cry caught somewhere between your teeth and your dreams. A fire still smolders in the pit, casting long shadows across the timber beams. Your eyes sting from the smoke and the heavy scent of pine pitch-dried fish and old bear grease. Across the longhouse, someone snores, mouth open, oblivious. But you feel it, the cold fog coiling outside, the distant thump of a single drumbeat, steady as a heart. Why do you wear fur in the rain? Why does your body hum with something between dread and duty? And who decided to mix fermented honey with what smells suspiciously like vinegar, you'll find out. But first, let's roll back the reindeer hide and stand up. If this already feels more stable than your modern morning routine, maybe leave a like and subscribe. I promise there are no calendars or inboxes in this longhouse. What time is it where you are? And what odd piece of historical trivia do you think about when you can't sleep now? Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice is your breath. It's visible steaming in the chill air, curling upward as if trying to escape before you do. The longhouse is dim, but not dark. Smoke holes near the roof let in strips of watery light, thickened by mist. Your blanket is damp. Everything is damp. The wooden bench beneath you groans as you shift. Today is a raiding day. No one says this out loud. It doesn't need saying. You feel it in the subtle tension of the bodies stirring around you in the way the older warriors lace their boots slower than usual. No one hurries. No one wants to admit they're awake. You stand tugging on your tunic, rough wool scratched thin at the elbows. Your belt hangs beside your cot, already looped with a bone-handled knife and a pouch of something that rattles when moved, dried mushrooms maybe, or small bones. You don't remember packing it. In the far corner, an elder sharpens his axe against a whetstone with rhythmic calm, as if preparing for carpentry, not combat. The blade glints dully. You glance away. You step outside. The morning is gray and dripping. Fog curls around the thatch of other longhouses, and the nearby trees blur into ghost shapes. You can smell salt on the wind. The fjord isn't far. A single drumbeat rolls from beyond the hill. Slow, measured, not calling you, summoning you. Your boots sink into the mud. You hear the low cluck of chickens, the distant bark of a dog. Everything feels ordinary, which is what makes it worse. Some historians believe berserkers were carefully selected warriors, bred or trained for this kind of fearlessness. Others argue they were misfits, half-mad outcasts given a place in society only through violence. There's no consensus, just stories. You adjust the bare pelt slung across your shoulders. It's damp and stinks faintly of vinegar and old smoke. Some claim it's symbolic, meant to channel the bear's spirit. Others think it's theatrical. All you know is it itches. A child peeks out from behind a wooden post, eyes wide watching you. He says nothing. He doesn't need to. You are what his stories are made of. And you're still waking up, but your heart has already started marching. The fog lifts just enough to reveal the fire pit again, this time surrounded. A quiet circle has formed, men crouched or seated cross-legged, eyes low. You're ushered toward it without a word. There's no conversation, just the occasional sniff, a scrape of wood, the hiss of steam escaping a clay pot. Someone passes you a bowl. Inside it, sloshes. Onions float like pale fish eyes. Beneath them, a dark liquid murky with sediment bubbling faintly. You sip. It burns going down, sweet then, sour, then sweet again. Someone chuckles hoarsely. Welcome to breakfast. The mixture tastes like rage, or at least like something pretending to be rage. The meat is thick with honey and herbs you can't name. There's mushroom pulp in there, too chewed and spat by someone else if rumors are true. It's said the effect sharpens your instincts and dulls your doubt, maybe even invites the gods in for a visit. Across from you, a man with a crooked nose shakes visibly. His hands flutter over his knees like trapped birds. He grins at you, teeth speckled with whatever was in the bowl. You grin back. There's nothing else to do. Historically, the exact contents of Berserker brew remain unknown. Some researchers think it was fly-agaric mushroom, known for its vivid hallucinations and intense stomach cramps. Others point to henbane or belladonna. A few insist it wasn't the ingredients at all, but the ceremony itself that summoned the trance. Scholars argue. You drink. Next, a slab of barley bread is passed around. It's dense, crumbly, and somehow smoky. Smells faintly of fish oil. You chew mechanically, eyes fixed on the embers. Someone begins to hum a low, dissonant drone that vibrates your ribs more than your ears. A second voice joins, then a third. The circle doesn't speak. It resonates. You glance at the others, painted faces, scarred arms. One man has his chest bare runes cut into his skin with a knife half-healed. Another has teeth sharpened to points. A performance or preparation. The warmth in your belly grows, not comfort something else. A heat rising behind your eyes. A slight shiver begins at the back of your skull and moves downward. It doesn't feel like fear, but it doesn't not feel like it either. Quaint breakfast customs, these are not. From time to time, one of the older warriors reaches forward to mark the ground with ash from the fire. Circles, spirals, symbols only they understand or pretend to. No one explains. That's part of the point. Outside, the drums are faster now. They're not urgent, just insistent. Like someone knocking politely on the door of your chest. It's time. One man stands. He howls animal-like but high-pitched. Not menacing, not even loud. Just odd. Then he's laughing. The laughter spreads. No one knows why, and no one needs to. You rise with them. As the circle breaks, you feel something settle into your bones, not courage, not madness, but a curious blend of the two. Your hands are steady now, but your mind is just beginning to sway. The pelt is heavier than it looks. You hold it up, brown, ragged, matted with old blood, and drape it across your shoulders. The head still has one glassy eye. It swings loosely against your spine like a forgotten accusation. No one helps you. No one claps or chants. You simply wrap yourself in the skin of something you didn't kill, but are expected to embody. The bare shirt. In Old Norse, Berserker means bare shirt, though some debate whether it refers to the wearing of the pelt or going bare-chested into battle. Either way, the symbolism is clear. You are now something else. Larger, wilder, more animal than man. You tighten the belt across your middle. The fur pinches where it overlaps. Underneath your tunic clings to damp skin. You feel absurd theatrical. But no one is laughing. A man nearby kneels to paint black lines across his cheeks. Another dabs grease into his beard until it shines. The pelt is not ceremonial in the way a bishop's robe might be. It doesn't shimmer. It doesn't bless. It intimidates. It isolates. Once you put it on, people look at you differently. They avoid your eyes like you're already halfway gone. Historians aren't sure when the bare shirt became a rite of passage. Some believe it was a personal choice, not a formal ritual. Others suspect it was a sign by elders handed down like armor. A few think it never happened at all, that berserkers were more myth than reality. But when you tug the pelt tighter, none of that matters. It's itchy. The long hairs crawl against your neck. You feel like you're wearing an argument. Something inside you resists, wants to tear it off, throw it to the mud. But you don't. That resistance is part of the process, part of the test. You step outside again. This time the village looks different. Same fog, same crooked fences. But people step aside for you now. even before they see your face. Children are ushered indoors. A dog growls and backs away. You didn't mean to scare anyone, but now you know you can. One of the elders approaches. He doesn't speak, just places a heavy hand on your shoulder. The weight lingers even after he walks away. That was approval, or warning, or both. The pelt begins to feel less like clothing and more like a voice in your ear. Not a whisper, not quite, but a mood, a pulse. It tells you to walk differently, to breathe from deeper down. You do. They say those who wore the bear shirt became hard to recognize even to their families. The transformation wasn't just theatrical, it was total. And perhaps it wasn't about magic or madness at all, but the simple power of performance. The belief that if everyone treats you like a monster, you become one. You pass the water trough and catch your reflection. Your eyes look further away than they did an hour ago. The fur ripples in the breeze like it's breathing. You don't wave at the children watching from the shadows. You just keep walking. The trees are darker here, dense, damp, thick with moss and memory. You walk alone for this part is not for witnesses. Only the ravens in the branches seem to take interest, cocking their heads as you pass glossy eyes blinking. A small clearing opens ahead, ringed with stones and the faint scent of iron. No one told you where to go, but your feet knew. This is the grove. In the center lies a flat slab of rock smoothed by use. It holds no markings, no runes, just silence. You kneel before it, pelt hanging like a question mark from your shoulders, and draw your blade. Your fingers don't tremble now. You place the blade's edge across your palm and draw it slowly. Not deep, just enough. The blood beads immediately vivid and bright in the gray light. It drips onto the rock where it mingles with older stains. Some might be yours already, some might be older still. This is the oath. You speak no words, not aloud, just shapes in your mouth, promises to Odin, or to yourself, or to the wind. You're not entirely sure anymore. Was this devotion a pact, an act? Scholars have argued all sides. Some believe these rituals were solemn offerings deep with religious meaning. Others suggest they were performance tools to focus the mind and frighten the enemy. There's even debate over whether they happened at all or were just saga embellishments. But here you are, bleeding in the moss. You press your palm to the stone. The sting sharpens your vision. You feel the pulse in your wrist, quick and hot. It's grounding. It's real. Behind you the ravens shuffle. One lets out a single croak like a cough. Odin's birds, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory. You don't know if they're watching for him or for you. Your mouth feels dry. You close your eyes and whisper again. The words make no sense. Maybe they never did. Maybe that's the point. The wind shifts. Somewhere far off, a branch cracks. You listen harder, but hear only your own heartbeat thudding like a war drum. It fills the grove. It fills you. The cut begins to clot. You stand slowly flexing your fingers. Blood smears across your knuckles like war paint. It feels sacred, or maybe just sticky. Either way, you don't wipe it off. You return the blade to its sheath, not with ceremony, but with familiarity. This part is done. As you walk back toward the village, the trees seem to lean in closer. They remember what you've done. They'll remember you differently now. And so will you. It's said that Odin favored the berserkers that he chose, then watched them use them. Whether that's true or just convenient myth is impossible to say. But in this moment, with blood drying on your hand and moss dampening your knees, you feel claimed, not owned, not cursed, just set apart. The others won't ask what you saw in the grove, and you won't tell them. That's not how this works. You emerge from the trees and the drum beat welcomes you home. The drum is no longer distant. It pounds now, not with speed but with certainty. Each beat echoes through your bones as if your ribs were hollow logs. You follow the sound like a trail boot sinking slightly into the churned earth. The fog parts just enough to reveal the source. A group of men stand in a circle around a set of logs stretched taut with animal hide. One strikes a drum with a carved stick rhythm, steady and unchanging. Another joins in. The beats begin to overlap, one low and slow, the other sharp and staccato. Together they sound less like music and more like a heartbeat with a limp. You take your place in the circle. No one speaks. There's no need. The drumming speaks for everyone. Some scholars believe these rhythms were carefully constructed, designed to heighten adrenaline and suppress fear, timed to breathing patterns and battle cadence. Others suspect they served a mystical purpose inviting possession or trance. A few suggest they simply terrified the enemy, projecting the presence of something larger and more chaotic than any ordinary army. Whatever the reason you feel it working, the beat coils around you like smoke. Your fingers twitch in time. Your jaw clenches. A memory bubbles up your father's voice, telling you not to fear the noise, but to follow it. You hadn't understood then. You might now. One by one, warriors begin to sway. Not in rhythm, no, something stranger. A lean here, a sudden jerk there. The kind of movement you don't choose. The kind your body invents. A young warrior beside you begins to chant. The words are unfamiliar, half-barked, half-breathed. Not quite song, not quite spell. You pick up the refrain without knowing why. Your voice blends with his, then with the circle, until you're no longer certain who is speaking. Someone throws a handful of embers into the air. They hiss and crackle as they arc over the drums. Tiny fireflies of ash drift down, catching in hair and beards. You don't flinch. None of you do. There is no command, no horn, no shouted order. The drumming is enough. You begin to march. Not in rows, not in formation, just forward. Toward the edge of the village where the path bends down toward the shore. The fjord lies beyond, and the boats wait. The drums follow, carried by boys too young for battle, their eyes wide and solemn. They hit the skins with small fists, mimicking the rhythm of their fathers. You feel no fear, not yet. Just something electric crawling up your spine. The pelt is warm now, almost hot. Your breath steams like the ground after rain. People step aside. A woman nods once sharply. A man lifts a child onto his shoulders to watch. You don't meet their eyes. You are no longer part of their world. The drumming rises again. It folds into your chest pulses behind your eyes. You don't march alone. You march as something larger. Down the slope, the landscape opens into a wide field. The grass is short and slick with dew pressed down by many feet. Across it stands a line of wooden shields, locked edge to edge, glinting faintly in the morning light. The Saxons have arrived. Their wall is tight men, braced shoulder to shoulder, spears angled forward, eyes narrow behind iron helms. They look like a fence that bites. None of them speak. That's the part that unnerves you most. Your side forms up quickly, though, not neatly. Berserkers don't stand in rows. You spread out just close enough to nod at each other, just far enough to break in different directions. You're the tip of the spear, the opening note of a very violent song. There's a pause, not a long one, just enough for breath. A war horn sounds behind you, but your feet are already moving. You charge. Some accounts claim berserkers felt no pain in battle, that they were numb, immune, untouchable. Others suggest they were just quicker to ignore it, fueled by belief or potion or pure terror. The truth is probably somewhere in between. What you feel right now isn't fear, it's momentum. Your boots slap against the wet grass, mud flecks your legs. The bare pelt flaps behind you like a flag from another life. You don't remember drawing your axe, but it's in your hand, warm and ready. Ahead, the shield wall grows larger, more detailed faces behind the wood hands gripping leather straps, knuckles white. Their feet shift. You're close enough now to see the sweat. And then contact. Your axe doesn't cleave cleanly, it sticks. The shield catches it awkwardly, and the jolt rattles your teeth. You twist, wrenching it free, and slam your shoulder into the man behind the shield. He grunts. You push harder. The wall shudders. More berserkers crash in beside you. Some leap onto the shield's boots, kicking off helmets. Others wedge between cracks, howling and swinging blindly. The sound is immense metal on wood voices, shouting the thud of bodies falling. You don't think. You move. You duck, swing low, catch something soft. Someone screams. You shove forward. Your foot slips. A spear grazes your side. You barely feel it. There is no formation now, just whirl and clash and breath in short gasps. You spot a Saxon dropping his weapon, eyes wide with disbelief. You raise your axe and stop. He's already falling. Someone else got to him first. Historians still debate whether berserkers truly broke enemy lines with supernatural strength, or if their reputation alone did the work. Some suggest their unpredictability caused confusion more than destruction. But on this field today, the shield wall is cracking, and you are one of the cracks. You're bleeding, not badly, not yet. But it's enough to paint your forearm, and the blood mixes with the mud in strange, almost artistic patterns. Someone calls your name. You don't answer. You don't hear it. All you hear is the rhythm of your own breath and the sound of the wall falling apart. You don't notice when the shouting stops. You notice when everything else does. There's a strange stillness, a beat where your limbs are still moving, but the noise has drained away. Around you, the field is smeared with bodies and breath, and something worse. You stand there, axe in hand, not remembering the last strike, not even remembering why you swung. Your vision pulses. Red. Not blood exactly, just a shade that fills your mind like smoke. The bare pelt is soaked heavy on your shoulders. You can't tell if it's rain sweat or something darker. Maybe all three. Someone is sobbing nearby. It might be you. There's a figure kneeling in the grass. One hand over a wound, the other reaching for a dropped weapon. You watch him unmoving. Then you look at your own hands. They shake. Not with fear, not with cold. Just something left over. Something unnamed. Later they'll say you bit a man's ear off, that you screamed at a horse until it collapsed, that you ran through fire without noticing. You don't remember any of that. You don't remember much. Was it the gods? Was it the potion? Was it just a long string of panic given a name? Some scholars argue that berserker rage was a kind of ritualized hysteria, induced by drug suggestion or sheer adrenaline. Others suggest it was a genuine psychological state, perhaps even a form of seizure. Still others believe it was exaggerated after the fact, a story to make victory look inevitable. But none of those explanations help you now. You crouch in the wet grass and try to breathe. Your mouth tastes of metal. There's something stuck between your teeth, maybe meat, maybe cloth. You spit. It doesn't help. The fog has thinned, revealing more of the aftermath. You see bodies, some, still some, crawling, some twitching, like dreams trying to wake up. A shield floats face up in a puddle, its paint scraped away. A raven hops between limbs unconcerned. You wipe your axe on a tunic. It leaves a smear, not clean, not satisfying. You try again. Around you, other berserkers are also slowing, looking at one another like strangers. The laughter is gone. So is the rhythm. Now it's just breath and cold, and the sound of something ending. One of the elders limps past, blood streaked across his brow. He doesn't meet your eyes. He doesn't need to. You sit down suddenly, too tired to stand. Your knees fold like paper. You rest the axe beside you and press your palms into the dirt. It's cool. It's real. You stay like that for a long time. This wasn't glory. It wasn't even madness. It was something harder to name a space between the two, filled with noise and forgetting. You glance up at the sky, still pale with mist, and wonder how long you've been here. Manned hours. Your body remembers the battle. Your mind tries not to. But the shaking won't stop. Eventually, someone helps you stand. You don't remember who. A hand strong but not urgent pulls you up from the mud, and suddenly you're walking again, back across the field, toward the village, towards something warmer. Your axe drips quietly at your side. No one says a word. Back at the longhouse, the fire has been rekindled. The smell of smoke and pine returns familiar, now almost kind. You ease yourself down beside a barrel and close your eyes. Just for a moment. When you open them, your hands still tremble. You try to lift a cup of water. It sloshes. Half of it ends up on your leg. You try again. No better. Someone hands you a piece of cloth. You wrap it around your fingers, hoping it will quiet them. It doesn't. A few feet away, another berserker stares into the flames. His face is blank. He chews something slowly, mechanically, as if he's forgotten the purpose of it. No one jokes. No one sings. Some scholars interpret this post-battle state as trauma, a primitive form of shock unspoken but deeply felt. Others argue it was the after effect of drugs, their fire burning out. A few even suggest possession, a spirit entering and then leaving, hollowing the vessel it borrowed. Whatever the theory, the result looks like this silence. The longhouse holds more than warriors now. Children peek in, too curious to stay away, too smart to speak. A dog whines from beneath a bench. You hear the drip of rain from the roof, beam steady, gentle, indifferent. Your body aches, not in the places you expected, not just bruises and cuts. Deeper than that in your chest, your back, your jaw. You hadn't realized how tightly you'd clenched your teeth. You spot your reflection in a polished piece of metal. Your eyes look wider than usual, your skin pale. The bear pelt has been taken off, placed beside the fire to dry. It steams faintly like it's still breathing. You reach for the cup again. This time, you manage a sip. It tastes like water should. Outside, the drums are quiet now. The boys who carried them sit in a cluster, eating quietly, watching the grown men with a mix of admiration and confusion. You wonder what stories they'll tell. One of the elders begins to hum, low, slow, without rhythm. A lullaby, maybe, or a spell, or just something to fill the space. You close your eyes again. This time you're not sure if you sleep. The fire crackle beside you, soft and irregular. Someone adds another log, and the heat pulses briefly. You stretch your fingers, still shaking, but less. You think of the grove of the blade of the stone, of the boy with the wooden axe who watched you leave that morning. You wonder if he'll remember you differently now. Maybe you'll remember yourself differently too. The war is over, for today. But the sound of your heartbeat still echoes softer but insistent, like a drum that hasn't quite forgotten how to play. Evening slides in with little ceremony. No fanfare, no proclamations, just the slow dimming of light through the slats in the longhouse walls. You rise stiff and slower than before and step outside where the cold meets you like an old friend. By the river's edge, a small group has gathered. Buckets of water wait near the stones, and beside them, a pile of weapons, axes, short swords, spears. Yours is among them, still streaked with something brown and sticky. You pick it up carefully. The edge is chipped. The wood of the handle is dark with dried sweat. No one speaks here either. This is not a place for boasting. You kneel by a bucket and lower your blade into the icy water. It hisses slightly as it meets the cold. You swirl it gently, watching the blood uncurl in ribbons, dancing briefly before dissolving. It's oddly beautiful. Some historians describe this as a sacred act, a ritual of purification meant to honor the dead and reset the warrior's spirit. Others see it as purely practical, clean your gear, or it rusts. Still others suggest it was both necessity and meaning, folded together like everything else in this life. You run a rag along the edge, slow and deliberate. There's satisfaction in it, not joy, not even peace, just something that feels finished. Next to you, a younger warrior works in silence. His hands are red from cold and effort. He breathes through his nose, slow and steady eyes fixed on his blade. You don't speak, but you both feel the same quiet weight. The river hums beside you. Not loudly, just enough to be noticed when everything else goes still. A raven lands nearby, picking at something in the grass. You try not to wonder what. You flip the axe clean the other side. There's a nick near the top. It wasn't there this morning. You run your thumb across it and wince slightly. Still sharp, still yours. The firelight from the village begins to flicker against the trees. Shadows stretch long and strange across the field, making the cleaned weapons look like fallen stars. When you finish, you set the axe on a clean cloth to dry. The water in the bucket is no longer clear. It's tinged with red with mud, with something that can't be named. You tip it carefully into the grass, watching the mixture soak into the soil. The elder near the tree nods once approvingly, or maybe just acknowledging the act. That's enough. You wipe your hands, stand, and stretch. Your back pops. It sounds far too loud. As you walk back toward the longhouse, the cold sharpens your focus. The pelt still hangs there, steaming faintly. Someone has laid out woolen wraps near the fire. You glance back once at the buckets, the blades, the river. There's something grounding about the act of cleaning, not erasing, not forgetting, just making space for the next moment, whatever that may be. And tonight, at least, your axe is clean. Later that night, the fire becomes the center of the world again. Its crackle replaces the sound of drums, and its light paints flickering shapes across the walls, shields, limbs, spears that seem to move, even when you don't. You sit cross-legged on a fur close enough to feel the heat, but far enough not to squint. Around you, your fellow berserkers gather, some eating, some staring into the flames, one carefully stitching a torn boot without looking down. And then the stories begin. Not officially, not with a herald or a toast, just a voice low and rough, picking up the thread of something that happened on the field. A moment, a laugh, a lunge. The voice trails off and another picks it up, adds a detail, stretches it a bit. And suddenly, you're the main character. They say you roared before the charge. They say you caught a spear mid-air and snapped it over your knee. They say you scared a Saxon so badly he dropped his weapon and fled. You don't correct them. Legends, after all, are not built on facts. They're built on silences on the things not said, the things hinted at with a grin or a shrug. And tonight you let the silence do the work. Some of the details are true, some aren't. Some you genuinely don't remember, which makes them the easiest to accept. You smile occasionally, nod when needed. That's enough. Historians note that the oral traditions of Norse warriors often blurred the line between truth and performance. A tale was meant to grow with each retelling, not to be preserved in amber. Some scholars even suggest that silence was a deliberate tactic. Mystery was power. The less you said, the more they imagined. A boy fetches another log for the fire. Sparks leap up in thanks. The shadows shift again, and someone leans forward to describe how you allegedly leapt over a shield wall, how you landed without stumbling. It's absurd. But no one laughs. It's not about realism, it's about rhythm. You sip something warm from a clay cup. It tastes of cloves and apple. Someone has added honey, too much honey, but you don't complain. The warmth spreads through your chest like a second fire. A dog pads over and curls at your side. Its fur is rough, but comforting. It sighs once deeply, then sleeps. You resist the urge to do the same. One of the older men clears his throat and launches into a story that predates today entirely, a raid from years ago on a place none of you have seen. He names men who are no longer alive, describes weather that no longer exists. The room listens as if it's all happening now. You lean back, feeling your muscles ache in pleasant ways. The pelt still steams faintly from the drying rack. Your axe rests beside you, clean, quiet. And your name, whether earned or embellished, is now part of the firelight. As the fire dies down to a soft glow, you feel a tap on your shoulder, light but firm. An elder stands over you, holding a small iron bowl and something that looks like a needle carved from bone. He nods once, then turns, expecting you to follow. You rise slower than before, joints protesting with each step. The others don't ask where you're going. They know, or they think they do. Behind the longhouse in the shadow of a mossy boulder, the elder kneels and gestures for you to sit. You obey. The ground is cold beneath you, the night air sharper here, tinged with salt and wood smoke. The stars peek out tentative and few. He lifts the bowl and stirs it with the bone needle. The contents are thick black and smell faintly of burned antler. You recognize the scent-charred bone ink. Without a word, he presses the tip of the needle to your shoulder. You flinch not from pain, but from the memory of other cuts made today. This one is different. This one is permanent. The first prick is sharp. The second is sharper. Then the burning begins. Some claim these tattoos marked kills. Others believe they were blessing symbols of protection or transformation. A few argue they were simply status indicators. Look at this mark and know what I've done. Historians remain divided. The truth is likely tangled among them all. You don't know what the symbol means. He didn't ask you to choose it. He didn't explain it. You'll see it later maybe, but it's not for you right now. It's for the skin. The needle works steadily, tapping pigment beneath your flesh. You bite your cheek to stay still. You feel heat building in the muscle, radiating down your arm. The elder hums softly as he works an old tune, probably meaningless or maybe sacred. The stars watch silently. When he finishes, he presses a cloth to the wound and wraps it gently with linen. He pats your shoulder, not hard, just enough. Then he stands and disappears into the shadows without saying a word. You remain seated a while longer. The skin throbs with every heartbeat. The pain is pure, unlike the chaos of the battlefield. This pain is shape-designed. It has a beginning, a middle and end. Back in the longhouse, no one asks to see it. They know better. A tattoo like this isn't for showing off, not yet. Maybe not ever. The fire has burned lower. The dog has moved closer to the embers. You return to your spot and sit carefully, favoring your shoulder. Someone offers you a piece of dried meat. You chew slowly, mostly for the motion. The ink smells faintly of smoke and blood. It fades into the background as your eyes begin to droop. Outside, the wind shifts. Inside your skin carries a new story burned into place. You won't forget it. And now, neither will your body. You don't remember lying down. One moment, you're staring at the glowing coals. The next, you're under a pile of furs and wool limbs, tangled and warm. The fire's warmth still lingers in the air, but the longhouse has quieted. Most have drifted off already, breathing deep, unmoving, sprawled like exhausted statues. The sheepskin against your cheek is scratchy, but comforting. Someone tucked a wool blanket over your legs. You don't know who. It doesn't matter. Even your tattooed shoulder, now tightly bandaged, has stopped throbbing. Just a dull hum in the background, like a heartbeat half remembered. A cat curls up on your chest, small, black. It arrived without sound and settled with the authority of something ancient. Its paws knead your tunic once, then it sighs and begins to purr, soft, rhythmic, faintly absurd. You've screamed in battle, bled in the grove, but here you are, pinned gently by a purring cat. You close your eyes. It doesn't help. Dreams tease the edge of your mind, hesitant and flickering. You try not to follow them, But sleep is no longer passive. Your thoughts reach out ahead of you, chasing images you didn't summon, waves crashing, feathers falling, a man with a painted face who speaks backwards. Some scholars suggest berserkers suffered from vivid post-battle dreams, the result of trauma or lingering psychoactive herbs. Others think these dreams were part of the process, a spiritual come-down, a form of myth-making shaped by sleep. Either way, they often mention the sea. You shift slightly, trying to get comfortable. The cat readjusts, offended but tolerant. Its purring continues like a spell being cast slowly and repeatedly. Around you, the others snore. One mumbles in his sleep. Another coughs and turns. A few twitch like dogs dreaming of old hunts. You envy them. The roof beams above you loom like ribs of some great beast. Smoke stains trail upward in graceful arcs. The night air drifts in, cool through the gaps. It smells like pine ash and the fading edge of sweat. You tug the blanket tighter around your shoulders. It's heavier than you remember, or maybe you're lighter. Something is different. The battle feels days ago. The field, the drums, the charge, it's all slipping sideways in your memory. You're too tired to chase it. The cat stretches and settles again. Its weight is barely there, but it anchors you, keeps you here now, beneath the wool and beside the fire. You focus on the rhythm of its purring, let it fill the spaces the drums once did. You wonder if tomorrow anyone will speak of today. If your name will be attached to stories that grow legs and wear armor they never earned. Or if this will all melt away into another layer of silence. For now, you don't care. You breathe deeply once, twice. The cat matches your rhythm. And at last, your mind begins to slip beneath the surface. It begins with water. Not cold, not rushing, just endless. You float above a dark fjord, arms stretched wide as though the sea itself were holding you up. There's no boat, no oar. Just your breath and the salt on your lips. The sky above is a bruised purple speckled with stars that pulse like slow drums. The world is quiet. Beneath you the water glows faintly. Shapes move far below fish perhaps, or memories. They don't approach, they simply drift. This isn't a dream you've had before, but it doesn't feel new either. Your bare pelt is gone, so is your axe. You wear only your tunic dry despite the sea. You should be sinking, but instead, you drift. Some historians believe that berserkers experienced vivid visions during their recovery episodes that were half dream, half hallucination, shaped by exhaustion ritual or residue from psychoactive substances. Others argue these dreams were symbolic, passed down and retold to reinforce their status as touched by gods. The truth remains submerged, like everything else in this place. You lift your hand and watch droplets form on your fingertips, shimmer briefly, then vanish. Your palm is whole again, no cut, no blood, no ink. A raven passes overhead, silent and slow, its wings stretched impossibly wide. It does not caw, it does not turn, it just continues. You tilt your head back, gaze into the stars, and notice that they too seem to move. A slow spiral, not spinning the sky, but drawing it inward, drawing you inward, and yet you feel calm. In this dream, the sea is not enemy or obstacle. It's memory, not of one thing, but of everything. The trees, the stone, the drums, all of it echoes here, gently muffled as if wrapped in wool. You hear laughter. Not cruel, not mocking, familiar. It's the voice of someone who fought beside you, who ate beside you, who might be gone now, or might be sleeping 2 feet away. You let it wash over you. Then the salt stings your eyes. You blink and the fjord flickers. Now you're beneath the surface, still breathing. The water is warmer here, full of color. Ribbons of kelp drift upward like incense smoke. A carved shield sinks slowly past trailing bubbles. A runestone stands upright on the seafloor, its markings unreadable but oddly comforting. You reach for it, your hand passes through. You don't panic. You smile. This isn't a dream to understand. It's a dream to rest in. Above the sky is still turning, the stars still spiral. Somewhere in the distance, a drumbeat resumes, soft, steady, as if guiding you back. You exhale, and the bubbles drift upward, glowing. Back in the longhouse, your body turns slightly in sleep. The fire has gone to embers. The cat is gone, but your breath remains steady. The dream continues, and the sea remembers. You wake before the light fully arrives. Grayness hovers at the edges of the longhouse, soft as smoke. The fire has burned down to its last red veins, and the air is colder than before. You shift beneath the wool blanket, careful not to disturb the silence that blankets everything. Your body is sore, not dramatically, just a slow, spreading ache that greets each movement like a question. You sit up and stretch joints cracking like twigs. The pelt is folded nearby. Someone placed it there with care, though it smells no better for it. You leave it for now. The others are still asleep, most of them anyway. One man stirs and mutters in his dreams. Another snores rhythmically curled around a water skin. A third stands near the door, rubbing his arms and looking out at the gray. You join him. Outside, the village is hushed. A few tendrils of smoke rise from cook fires. A chicken struts through the mud, unbothered by the memory of battle. Off in the distance, the fjord gleams faintly silver and smooth. The tide is high. A boy plays with a wooden axe near the path. His swings are clumsy, more theatrical than threatening. He growls softly, imagining himself large, terrifying, like you. He sees you watching and freezes. You nod once, then look away. Breakfast is already simmering, somewhere fish porridge by the smell of it. A pot of ale sits warming on a stone, giving off a sour, sweet tang. You're not hungry, not yet, but the routine is familiar, comforting. You walk to the edge of the clearing where yesterday's path begins. It still holds the imprint of boots and dragging shields. The grass has not yet recovered, neither have you. Some historians note that after raids, Viking warriors often fell into a period of silence, days where little was said, as if words had to be coaxed back from wherever they had gone. Others think the silence was less cultural and more personal. Each man walked his own echo chamber. You sit on a flat rock and breathe in the morning air, damp, earthy, faintly metallic. You can still feel the ghost of the drums in your chest, though their echo is fainter now. The boy with the wooden axe has resumed his swings. He makes a sound with each one, half grunt, half giggle. He isn't fierce, not yet. You wonder if he'll ever wear a pelt, if he'll walk into a grove and draw a blade across his hand, if someone will whisper his name into the firelight someday. You hope not. You close your eyes and let the quiet fill your ears. No chanting, no howling, no breathless charge. Just the gentle slap of waves against the dock and the boy pretending to be you. Your shoulder aches where the tattoo lies hidden. You resist the urge to touch it. It's yours now, for better or worse. The day has begun, and you're still here. By midday, the village has returned to something like normal. Smoke drifts upward from cook fires. Women rinse linens at the stream. Children chase each other between drying racks of fish. Even the dogs seem livelier, barking, begging, scratching at the earth with purpose. It's as if the battle didn't happen. As if the earth soaked up the memory along with the blood. You walk slowly not because of injury, but because you're no longer in a hurry. The others nod at you, some offering half smiles, others just eye contact. It's not camaraderie, it's recognition. But then you hear it. A word passed quietly near the goat pen, a muttered phrase near the well, a laugh too quiet to be casual, too pointed not to be noticed. Someone says, Berserker, not like a title, like a warning. You stop beside the fence where fresh rushes have been piled. A young man whispers something to his friend and jerks his head in your direction. They glance away when you look. Later, near the storage sheds, you hear an elder say it out loud. Not to you, about you. He says the king's new law forbids berserkers from serving in the levy. Too unpredictable, too violent, too something. He says they're becoming a problem. Some historians claim berserkers were outlawed as early as the 11th century, their place in society deemed too dangerous. Others argue they simply faded away, disappeared into legend as warfare became more organized, more disciplined. A few suggest they were never a formal group at all, just a name slapped on wild men after the fact. But the rumors feel real. You walk past a group skinning a deer. They pause, not in fear, just in hesitation. The bear pelt is dry now. You carry it over your shoulder, like a cloak you might or might not wear again. It smells better in the sun, though not by much. You return to the longhouse to find your axe has been moved, not far. Just enough to notice, just enough to remind you this is not your place forever. A boy sits nearby, carving something into a piece of driftwood. You recognize him, the one with the wooden axe. He doesn't look up. You sit beside him, not speaking. He glances at the bear pelt, then at your bandaged shoulder. Then he hands you the carving. It's crude a figure with arms raised one larger than the other. But you recognize it. He's trying to remember you. The version he saw anyway. You nod, hand it back. He grins. You stand stretch and look toward the fjord. Boats drift lazily near the dock, nets stretched out like lazy spider webs. The tide is retreating. The world keeps moving. The law may come. The stories may shift. But for now, the village is quiet, the day is warm, and your shadow still falls long across the ground. You tuck the pelt under your arm and walk on. Whether they outlaw you or forget you, your story has already been told. But even legends once told must live beside chores, and every story before it's passed down must wake up with morning breath and stiff boots. The day starts before your eyes are even open. Somewhere beyond your door, a rooster screams like it's being insulted personally. It's followed by the scuffle of hooves and the low call of a woman summoning cows toward the milking post. The hearth is already smoking, and someone, maybe your cousin, is muttering about chores. The scent of damp wool wood smoke and breakfast oats clings to everything. Beside the doorway, carved into a splintering panel of pine, are runes. Reminders, perhaps, or maybe a spell. Some families notch their daily duties, feed the pigs, mend the net, churn the butter into the wood each morning. Others carve cryptic little jokes no outsider could decipher. One symbol looks like a fish doing something inappropriate. Outside the sky is flat pewter. You pull on thick woven trousers, still stiff from yesterday's weather. Your boots squish faintly still wet. Chickens scatter as you step outside, and you nearly trip over a cat who looks smug about it. It's chilly, and you suspect your breath smells like moss and last night's stew. The rhythms of the village are as steady as they are strange. Hammering from the blacksmith. The creak of oxen pulling something you'll be expected to help unload later. Children's laughter tangled with the slap of water buckets. No one has time to be bored, but somehow everyone gossips anyway. Runes are everywhere on doorposts, fence rails, even a small stone tucked beside your firewood. Some mark blessings, others names. A few are clearly just doodles. But now and then one catches your eye, a spiral too smooth, too careful. Not quite for decoration, not quite for work. Historians still puzzle over whether some of these carvings were calendars or quiet curses. You scratch one more into the doorframe, your mark, your job, your joke. And then you grab your bucket. The day has only just begun. The air near the hearth is warm, but the bread is still a little frozen. You knock it against the table, and a few crumbs fall into your lap, chased by salt from the fish. That's breakfast dried herring oat cakes as dense as roof tiles and something resembling cheese if you squint. You chew slowly because there's no other way. Viking food isn't meant for speed. The morning has unfurled outside, but inside it's still dim. Smoke curls through the rafters, escaping through a hole in the roof that only leaks when it feels like it. Someone hands you a clay mug of goat milk, not fresh, not sour, just suspiciously lukewarm. Across the room, your uncle is already gnawing a chunk of smoked pork and reciting a story that clearly never happened. He says the gods showed him how to fish better. You suspect the gods, if they did visit, would have told him to bathe. The hearth crackles as you rewarm your hands and you eye the cauldron. It's got the remnants of last night's stew in it, turnips maybe, or old ambition. There's also a piece of dried apple stuck to the rim. Dried fruit is rare here. When someone trades for it, it's hoarded like treasure, doled out like favors. That leads to your first daily mystery. Is this the good flatbread? Or is it the one made with more bark than flour? Historians continue to debate what counted as a treat versus a staple in Viking cuisine. Some say honey was the real prize, others argue for imported spices or early beer. But for most villagers, the real reward was not having to chew quite so much. You lean against the wall and crunch another mouthful. The fish is salted beyond reason, preserved so well it might outlive your grandchildren. Still, it's hearty. You feel it settle in your belly like a stone, a kind, familiar stone. This is food that doesn't flirt, it commits. From outside, a neighbor is yelling about goats again. You sigh. Breakfast, as always, is brief and briny, not something to linger over, but a ritual nonetheless. Someone sets down a bowl with leftover milk for the cats, and a baby starts crying, possibly offended by the oat cakes. You scrape your crumbs into a reed basket and wipe your hands on the hem of your tunic. In Viking life, meals are less about pleasure and more about propulsion. You eat so you can chop wood, haul nets, and mend roofs. Chewing is cardio, but even so, you always sit near the hearth. That's where the best gossip warms itself. Someone once left a dried fig here, just one wrapped in linen like a gift. No one knows where it came from. Some say it was traded from across the sea. Others insist it was a blessing from Freya. A third theory says it was dropped by accident. You vote for the third one, but you never saw a fig again. You pat your stomach, drain the last of the milk, and stand. Time to wash if there's snow left. There's no soap, no steam, and certainly no privacy. But there is snow, fluffy, slightly gray at the edges, and melting just enough to sting when it hits your skin. You scoop it up with both hands and press it to your face. It's cold enough to make your teeth ache, but it wakes you up faster than any prayer. You're not alone. A chorus of squeals echoes from behind the woodpile, where children are tossing snow into each other's tunics. They yelp and laugh, and then immediately pretend it didn't happen, afraid someone will assign them extra chores for being too loud. You grin as one slips and lands in a bucket of rinse water. A rooster watches them with deep judgment. You kneel near the trough and splash your hands. The water is bone-chilling, but clean enough collected from last night's snowmelt, filtered through straw and habit. You rub your arms briskly with a cloth that smells of herbs and ashes. Soap, as you might imagine, it doesn't really exist here. What you get instead is a mix of juniper rosemary and the fine gray dust from last week's fire. You scrub until you stop smelling like stew. Cleanliness in your village is a funny thing. You wouldn't call anyone fragrant, but neither are they filthy. Bathing is done in layers, rinses in rivers, steam in the communal hut when it's warm enough, and dousing in snow when it's not. Scholars still argue how often Vikings truly bathed. Some records suggest weekly steam baths. Others insist those were rare luxuries. Then again, nobody ever asked the goats what they thought. The older woman from the next house is already wringing out linens. She nods at you, approving your attempt at not smelling like yesterday. Behind her, 2 boys are dumping handfuls of moss into a tub. You're not sure why. They aren't either. but it seems important. A thin icicle drips from the eaves. You catch a drop on your tongue like you did when you were smaller and thought it might turn you into a bear. Someone told you that, once a superstition that lives on only in slippery glances and half-whispered jokes. You duck back inside to finish drying off your skin, tingling and your fingers half numb. The hearth is already blazing again, smoke swirling into a shaft of light. You hold your hands over it and watch steam rise from your wrists. It smells faintly of pine sweat and that mysterious ash mixture everyone swears works better than anything store-bought. Not that you have stores. Somewhere a dog barks. It sounds annoyed that you're cleaner than it is. You pull on a fresh tunic well fresher and twist your hair back with a leather thong. You glance at your reflection in a pan of water. Not bad for someone who just bathed in snow and lie. The village doesn't have mirrors, only opinions. And you've learned not to trust either. Outside, someone calls your name. The day moves forward, and your hands still pink and raw are ready for it. The fields stretch beyond the fences, quietly demanding attention. And it's not men who answer the call, not most days. As you cross the yard, you spot your aunt, or maybe your neighbor, already knee-deep in sheep and judgment. She's barking instructions at a boy who isn't moving fast enough, weaving a net with one hand and flipping a griddle cake with the other. Viking women don't just keep the home, they run the land. You help unhook a snorting pig from the gate it somehow wedged itself into. Again she mutters, but with affection. She pats the pig, then you, and sends you off to gather eggs. The hens eye you suspiciously. They don't like change or your face. When men sail off to raid trade, or just disappear into legend, it's the women who anchor the world. They oversee planting, tend livestock, settle minor disputes, and sometimes conduct business at the market like seasoned traders. You've heard tales of women even running entire estates brokering deals with Norse merchants or Baltic strangers. At least one saga speaks of a woman who managed 3 farms, 5 children, and a lawsuit all in the same week. Law codes surprisingly offered Viking women a measure of protection, especially concerning property. If a husband vanished or failed to return, his wife could retain the household goods, land and livestock. Could. That word hangs heavy. Some historians argue that these laws were well enforced. Others suspect they were more like suggestions fine print scribbled between runes. But either way, women weren't background figures in these icy dramas. They were the stagehands, directors, and occasional lead actors. Today your aunt is all of the above. She lifts a pail of milk like it weighs nothing and hands it off to a girl barely tall enough to carry it. The girl does. No complaints. Just strong legs and wool-wrapped hands. Childhood here doesn't wait. You pass the weaving post where someone's mother is working the loom. Her feet tap a rhythm into the frozen ground, echoing softly under the snow-packed earth. Threads of indigo and chestnut move with surprising grace. Every cloak, every sail, every belt touched by hands like hers. You ask if she needs help. She says no, then tells you to fetch water anyway. In many ways this place functions because women do. Quietly, often fiercely, and with more sarcasm than poetry usually includes. They argue over fence lines, name goats after their least favorite neighbors, and remember debts better than any official scribe. You reach the well and haul up a sloshing bucket. The rope burns your palms slightly, but the ache is familiar. By the time you return, the pig has escaped again. This time, it's wearing part of a tunic. You say nothing. She'll catch it. She always does. And tonight, if the wind howls wrong, it's her voice that will calm the children. Not with lullabies, but with stories about clever women who outwitted gods, giants, and most importantly, other villagers. The bucket is heavier than it looks, and your fingers go numb by the time you reach the animal pen. A child rushes past you barefoot, grinning wildly with a stick in hand. It's not a toy, it's a broom, a spear, or perhaps a dragon's tail. In a Viking village, childhood is short, but it glows while it lasts. You set down the bucket just in time to stop a small boy from climbing into it. He looks up, nose running, clearly disappointed. He wants to feed the pigs. He's 2. You nod solemnly and hand him a crust of oatcake instead. He seems satisfied with the transaction. Children here don't go to school, at least not in the way you'd imagine. Their education is labor and legend one moment, carrying water the next, reciting tales of Thor's hammer or a clever fox who tricked a giant into sneezing himself to death. A little girl walks past you, muttering something about trolls in the rafters. You're not sure if it's a warning or a poem. They learn by watching how to stack firewood, how to twist rope, how to mend a net without tangling it into a curse. By the time they're 10, most can handle a goat, a knife, and a gossip session. There's no innocence to preserve, only skills to gain. Yet, oddly, it doesn't feel harsh, just inevitable. In the long evenings, families gather around the hearth, and the stories begin. Tales passed down from grandmothers to grandchildren, embroidered like cloaks over time. You've heard some so often you could tell them backward. One boy insists his uncle once fought a sea serpent near Gotland. Everyone laughs, but not too loud, just in case it's true. Some historians argue Viking childhood was brutal, filled with danger, hard labor, and cold beds. Others point to burial sites with tiny swords and toys, evidence of tenderness and time taken to craft playthings. As with most things, Viking the truth likely lives between the 2 soft moments in a hard world, where love is shown through wool mittens and one more bedtime story. Today you help 3 children gather turnips. One tries to juggle them. Another tries to eat one raw and instantly regrets it. The third just wants to know if turnips scream when you pull them. You assure him they don't. He isn't convinced. Later, you pass a girl no older than 7, stitching a rip in a tunic. Her fingers move fast neat, like she's been doing it forever. She has. When you compliment her, she shrugs and mutters something about needing it done before the cows wander off again. You nod. That makes perfect sense. As twilight hints at the horizon, the children slowly drift indoors, called not by voices but by instinct. The cold is coming back. You hear a mother hum a tune about a fox with one eye and a belly full of stars. A boy curls beside the hearth, pretending not to fall asleep. But he does mid-sentence. You smile. The turnips didn't scream. The forge doesn't wait for you. It hisses, groans, and chatters as if it's been gossiping all morning. You push open the heavy wooden door, and warmth crashes over you like a hot wave. Sparks pop and dance like fireflies with bad attitudes. The blacksmith barely glances up. He's too busy hammering what might be a horseshoe, or might be a piece of someone's dinner rack. It's hard to tell. He gestures for you to lay the broken scythe on the bench. You do. He grunts. That could mean this is fixable, or you're hopeless, or both. You're used to it. In this village, the blacksmith is less of a man and more of an institution, part artisan, part therapist, part rumor mill. While he works, he talks. He always does. Something about the chieftain's new boots, imported leather no less. Or maybe the boots are cursed. Or maybe the chieftain is. The blacksmith isn't sure, but he's leaning toward the boots. You nod solemnly. That seems reasonable. The forge roars again as he pumps the bellows. You watch the metal glow, orange then white, then fade. He sprinkles crushed bone on it. For strength, he says. Or maybe just for fun. There's no handbook. The anvil rings with every strike, and you start to suspect the blacksmith adds a few extra taps just for dramatic effect. He pauses mid-hammer to ask if you've heard about the trader's wife's cousin's new lover. You haven't. He fills you in. By the end of the story, you're not sure who was kissing whom, but you do know that someone's sheep went missing, and that apparently it's connected. Some scholars still puzzle over the social role of the village smith. Not just a toolmaker, he also acted as a mediator informant, and sometimes even an impromptu judge. His word carried weight, especially when it was coated in soot and shouted over the din of a hammer. The scythe is done before you realize. He hands it to you with a grunt that probably means you're welcome, and a side-eye that definitely means don't break it again. You thank him with a nod and a sliver of dried fruit. He hides his smile behind a cough. That's as close to affection as you'll get. Outside, the sun is now fully up, though it's doing very little to warm anyone. You feel the cold cling to your skin again the moment the forge door closes behind you. But the smell of smoke lingers, as does the image of the blacksmith's grin, quick and private. As you walk back, you notice two women whispering beside a chicken coop. One of them glances toward the smithy, the other smirks. Whatever tale the blacksmith told you, it's already mutated. You hold the fixed scythe a little higher. It feels heavier now, but that might just be the weight of 5 new rumors. And somewhere behind you the hammer rings again. You follow the winding path to the assembly clearing, where the wind moves like it's eavesdropping. This is where disputes are settled, laws are spoken, and sometimes sheep wander through uninvited. In the middle stands the law speaker, a man with a beard like a curtain and lungs that could shame a war horn. He's not holding any scrolls. There are none. Every word, every clause, every penalty for goat theft or accidental sword fights lives inside his head. Today he begins with a case about boundary stones and ends somehow with a poetic threat involving geese. No one interrupts, not just because it's rude, but because they're a little afraid he'll forget everything if thrown off track. You sit on a log with the others. Your fingers are still blackened from the forge, but no one notices. Everyone's listening, half hypnotized. The law speaker doesn't just recite the laws, he performs them. His voice rises, dips, pauses for effect. You swear he once winked mid-sentence just to keep people awake. It's mesmerizing in a sleep-deprived sort of way. These laws aren't just about order, they're theater. And the law speaker equal parts judge bard and very tired librarian. He starts to describe the punishment for stealing a horse. The words are oddly specific 3 witnesses, 1 oath a rock painted with red ochre. You're not sure if it's symbolic or just dramatic flair. Someone sneezes too loud, and the law speaker pauses for an uncomfortable 5 seconds before continuing. His memory is a fragile, sacred thing. Historians remain divided on how law speakers manage to retain so much. Some argue they trained from childhood, using rhythmic chants. Others suspect communal reinforcement villagers, who gently corrected him if he faltered. A few believe these men simply had terrifying memories, and nowhere else to put them. You glance around. Some people are nodding off. Others are scribbling on bits of bark, possibly doodling. One child is braiding grass into a crown and pretending to be queen of the goats. The law speaker drones on about inheritance rights for sheep born during eclipses. You didn't even know that was a category. But beneath the ritual and monotony, there's purpose. These spoken laws are living things passed from mouth to ear across generations. No ink, no parchment, just memory voice and the occasional dramatic pause. The speech finally ends, punctuated by the law speaker slapping his thigh and announcing that disputes may now be voiced. A man steps forward to argue about a fence. It gets surprisingly heated. Someone brings up a dream as evidence. Everyone agrees to break for lunch. As the crowd disperses, the law speaker leans on his staff and breathes out like he's been holding the world's longest sentence. You pass him and nod. He blinks at you, like he's not sure who you are, or maybe like he's storing your name somewhere deep for later retrieval. You're not sure whether to be honored or nervous, but you are sure of one thing: the man remembers everything, except possibly your cousin's goat's name. The docks don't shimmer, they clatter, shout, and reek of fish and fortune. You weave between barrels and boots clutching a jug of goat's milk like it's a royal heirloom. Today is trading day, and the wooden planks are packed with people who want. Things need things, and believe their things are worth twice what they are. You pass a woman arguing over the price of dried apples. The vendor swears they came from far south, maybe even Francia. She squints. They taste like rope. He shrugs. Fancy rope. A deal is struck, apples are weighed, and neither party looks pleased, but both seem satisfied in that Viking way, where satisfaction comes with slight suspicion. You reach your usual stall, a rough plank table operated by an older man with eyebrows like ferrets. You offer your milk. He sniffs it once and nods, already pulling out a string of amber beads. Not many, just enough for a bracelet or a bribe. You agree with a grunt, and the exchange is made with minimal ceremony and maximum side-eye. Barter here is less about exact value and more about rhythm. A nod, a shrug, a subtle insult about someone's goats, all part of the negotiation. The dock is alive with voices, a sea of words crashing louder than the tide. Somewhere, someone's yelling about seal pelts. A boy is trying to sell a dead crow as a rare sky omen. You admire the creativity, if not the smell. You sidestep a barrel of what might be fermented turnips and admire the variety fabrics dyed deep blue soapstone carvings shaped like animals, pine tar, and tiny clay pots. A man boasts he once traded a single walrus tusk for a whole cart of cinnamon. You doubt it. He offers you a walnut. You take it anyway. Historians have long noted that Viking trade reached surprising distances across the Baltic deep into Rus, even as far as Baghdad. But what often gets overlooked is the everyday absurdity of it. Not grand expeditions, but this, a dock full of shouting neighbors, squishy seaweed underfoot, and 6 different opinions on the value of a feathered hat. A splash interrupts your thoughts. Someone dropped a crate of dried fish. 3 dogs leap in like they've been waiting all day. Laughter erupts, followed by a minor scuffle involving a spoon, a sandal, and an accusation about someone's mother's baking. You finally trade your last item, a well-carved comb, for 2 iron hooks and what may or may not be licorice. It's probably not, but it's chewy and mysterious, so it's close enough. On your way out, you spot a rune seller offering talismans made from driftwood and teeth. One claims to protect against rude dreams. Another guarantees fertility in goats. You buy neither, but you do steal a glance at the rune shape, storing one in your memory just in case. You head home heavier in pouch, but lighter in patience. You survive the market, barely. And somewhere nestled among your goods, an amber bead catches the sun and winks. You fish a small bone comb from your pouch and begin untangling your wind-mussed hair. The teeth catch tug-release. It's oddly soothing, another ritual wrapped into daily life. Not vanity, not luxury, just maintenance. Like sharpening an axe or stirring the stew. But even these small acts say something about who you are and how you're perceived. Your breath smells faintly of mint and dried herbs, yarrow maybe, or angelica root. You chew them absent-mindedly as you walk, crunching between your teeth, with the satisfaction of someone who knows their mouth won't offend at close range. Cleanliness, you've learned, is a quiet kind of armor. A few villagers pass by. You nod, they nod. Everyone is subtly evaluating everyone else's scent. The one with unwashed hair is clearly recovering from something, or just lazy. The one with pine needle soap tucked in their belt, probably trying to impress the woodcutter's cousin. It's a small village. Nothing stays secret for long, except whose turn it is to clean the latrine. Even enemies noted Viking hygiene. Arab chroniclers in particular recorded how Norsemen bathed, regularly carried combs, and used fragrant washes. Whether those remarks came from admiration or sheer confusion is still debated by scholars. Some argue it was mockery veiled as praise. Others suspect genuine envy. After all, not every visitor smelled like lavender and ambition. You pass a woman braiding her daughter's hair, both sitting on a log as if posed for a tapestry. The girl has a small mirror, a polished bit of metal, and examines herself with quiet concentration. A speck of soot on her nose goes unnoticed, but not unloved. The mother hums a tune older than runes. In the privacy of your hut, you scrape your teeth with a twig frayed at one end, rubbed with charcoal and ash. It tastes like the hearth. But again, the goal is not glamour, it's function. No one wants to be the one at the feast with mossy molars. There's a horn comb tucked near your bed that once belonged to your grandmother. It's worn smooth with a tiny crack near the edge, and a rune etched faintly into the handle. Protection ownership. You're not sure. You like to think it makes your hair lie flatter. It doesn't. Hygiene kits in Viking graves often include tweezers, razors, and nail cleaners, which surprises modern sensibilities. We picture them as wild-haired raiders, not fastidious preeners. But surviving objects don't lie, and neither does the communal judgment when someone forgets to rinse properly. You pull off your boots, knock out the pebbles, and check your toes. Still all there, still vaguely presentable. A splash of water to the face, a brush of ash on the teeth, and you're good as new, or at least good enough for your neighbor to stop gossiping. Outside, the wind shifts. Someone nearby is boiling mint. You inhale deeply and smile. It's not fancy, but it's familiar, and it smells a lot better than the sheep pen, even if no one notices you do. And that's enough. You duck into the weaving hut drawn by the steady thump of the loom and the soft hum of women talking low and fast. It smells like lanolin and secrets. Cloaks hang drying on the rafters damp from last night's snow. Someone's dyed a new batch of wool and walnut husk, and it stains everything hands, hems, and half the dog's tail. 3 women sit on low stools, fingers flying through threads like spiders spinning gossip. The sound of the loom is constant, almost hypnotic. A clack, a tug, a foot tap, a beat as old as fire. It's not a loud room, but it's not silent either. One woman chuckles, another snorts. Someone drops a spindle and mutters something not fit for bedtime ears. You take a seat on the edge of a wool-stuffed crate and offer to wind some thread. They nod approval, which in this circle means you've passed some invisible test. You wind carefully, trying not to tangle or eavesdrop too obviously. But the stories unravel themselves, like the cloth. Apparently, the fisherman's daughter has been meeting someone behind the smokehouse. Or maybe she's just picking herbs. Hard to say. Also, the chieftain's cousin has a sore tooth that he claims is from battle, but everyone knows it's from honey cakes. And there's debate lively unresolved about whether someone's loom pattern resembles a certain neighbor's unfortunate nose. Historians still disagree about how sacred Viking textile work truly was. Some interpret the spindle and loom as symbols of fate drawing on mythological weavers like the Norns. Others argue that it was just practical. Someone had to make the sails cloaks and burial shrouds. The truth, as usual, is probably both. Threads carry more than wool. They carry memory. A girl of maybe 12 leans over her mother's shoulder, watching her fingers with rapt attention. She mimics the motions on her lap with a scrap of thread. The mother doesn't instruct her, doesn't praise her, just lets her learn one knot at a time. You can almost hear the skills passing silently from hand to hand. Outside, the wind hisses softly against the walls, but the warmth of Body's wool and whispered stories holds it at bay. A mug of warm broth gets passed around, and you sip it gratefully. It tastes like onion thyme and whatever was left in the stew pot. Comforting, slightly chewy. One of the women pauses to tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Her hands are stained blue from dye, her sleeves speckled with lint. She looks tired. She also looks triumphant. A new pattern is taking shape on the loom, a geometric curve that might be a wave or a knot or a joke. Only she understands. You help fold a newly finished cloak still warm from the lap it was sewn in. The wool whispers against your skin. Somewhere in its weave is a thread from the old sheep, the one with the limp. You remember it. You remember everything in fibers and fragments. The loom resumes its song, clack, tug, whisper, and the stories continue. Evening settles in with a sigh. The sky fades to the color of cooled ash, and the smoke from a dozen hearths curls upward like slow dancing ghosts. You duck back inside, shrug off your cloak, and sit near the fire. A clay bowl is placed in your hands, stew, thick and steaming. You don't ask what's in it. That's part of the fun. Beside it, a wooden cup of ale, not the frothy festival kind. This is the daily brew, weak flat a little sour, but it warms the chest and makes the stew taste like something intentional. You drink swallow and feel your shoulders relax for the first time all day. Someone starts humming near the hearth. Someone else is already asleep, mouth open, dreaming of better stew. Vikings drank beer as casually as water, and in many cases instead of it. Fermented barley herbs, sometimes honey, if you were lucky, often cloudy and served lukewarm. Some scholars claim it was highly nutritious, more porridge than potion. Others suggest it was simply the safest thing to sip, given how questionable the water could be. Either way, it was never about getting drunk. That was for feast funerals, or particularly intense sheep disputes. Tonight's ale has a hint of pine, possibly accidental. You sip again. It helps wash down a chewy bit of turnip and whatever might have once been meat. The stew clings to your spoon like it's afraid of the cold. You don't blame it. A neighbor arrives, drops off a handful of smoked fish, and leaves without saying more than a grunt. That's how favors work here, wordless reciprocal and sometimes fishy. You set the gift aside for tomorrow's meal. Maybe you'll trade it. Maybe you'll just eat it cold over a fence post while pretending to feed the dog. Laughter bubbles up near the back of the room. Someone's recounting a misfired arrow that startled the chieftain's chicken. Again. It's become legend at this point. You hear the story for the 12th time and still laugh. Not because it's new, but because it isn't. The fire crackles, casting flickering shadows across the beams. A boy pokes a sausage with a stick, then falls asleep mid-bite. A woman knots her hair into a bun, using a carved pin shaped like a raven. Someone has carved another rune into the side of the bench. You suspect it's just the word for stew, or help. As the stew disappears and the ale cup empties your mind, slows to the pace of embers. The day's noise, smoke, mud, and laughter all simmer together. You feel the heaviness in your limbs, the good kind, the kind earned by walking, hauling, bartering, weaving, listening. You set down the bowl, the cup, the worries. Someone refills the firewood pile without being asked. You nod in thanks. They nod back, then sit and drink from their own plain cup. It tastes better when shared, even if it's flat, especially if it's flat. Outside, the moon is rising soft-edged and suspicious. It casts just enough light to see the neighbor's sheep nudging the fence again. Not their fence, of course. Your fence. And that's where the trouble starts. You sigh, pull on your cloak, and step outside. Sure enough, 2 of the scraggier ewes have worked their way through a gap you repaired twice already. They're munching like they own the place. From across the path, a voice calls out your neighbor's sharp and feigning innocence. Oh, are those my sheep? Funny. They like your grass so much. You stare at each other across the fence. She's wrapped in fur, leaning on a crooked staff, looking absolutely delighted. You respond with the traditional Viking reply, a sarcastic grunt, and a raised eyebrow. This could escalate, or it could end with stew and a laugh. It depends on the mood. Feuds among neighbors are part of the village's pulse like rain or firewood. One day it's sheep. The next, it's boundary stones or a too long look at someone's daughter during the midsummer dance. Everyone remembers everything. Forgiveness is common, but forgetting never. A man once composed an insult poem so clever it made his rival blush, then applaud. Another time, two cousins settled a feud with an axe duel, then married each other's sisters at the funeral. Honor matters, but the rules are flexible and slightly ridiculous. Some scholars argue that Viking law favored poetry over violence, encouraging people to settle disputes through public recitations that combined insults, legal precedent, and mild theatrics. Others believe these were just the smarter people avoiding bruises. Either way, poems were weapons, and sometimes armor. You glance at your neighbor's sheep. They blink at you chewing with smug indifference. You consider composing a stanza about their terrible taste in fence lines. Instead, you grab a stick and herd them back without ceremony. The neighbor shrugs and says, "She'll bless your fence with better luck." You suspect that's code for, "I'll be back." You resecure the slats with twine and muttered threats. The fence groans. It's not convinced, neither are you. Back inside, the conversation has turned to another minor scandal. Someone stole a knife again. Someone else thinks it's the same person who broke the butter churn last week. A third insists it was the butter that did it. You listen quietly, choosing sides. One woman proposes a trial by oath. Another suggests a pie-eating contest. Both ideas get serious nods. This is politics Viking style. Not in councils or royal courts, but around stew pots, fences, and firelight. Reputation is currency. Memory is a weapon. And every sideways glance could be evidence in the next poetic feud. Later, you hear laughter echo across the path. Your neighbor's still talking about the sheep. You imagine her composing a verse right now, rhyming graze with lazy. You smirk. You'll write the rebuttal in your head tonight, just in case. No war, no blood. Just noses out of joint and rhymes sharp enough to cut cheese. The gate creaks as you return home, and that's when you notice it, a small wooden slat propped against the fence post, marked with a fresh set of runes. Not the usual kind. These are curved playful, almost smug. You tilt your head. A joke, a warning, or maybe an invitation. You run your fingers over the carving. It's not deep but deliberate. The strokes are confident like someone grinning while they worked. One rune looks suspiciously like a pig's rear. Another might be your name misspelled but unmistakable. You chuckle. Only one person would dare carve that and still hope to be invited to dinner. Runes aren't just for the sacred, they're also for mischief. Vikings carved them on weapon spoons, bed frames, and ship hulls. Some were blessings, others curses. And a surprising number were just odd. Messages left on stones that said things like, "Tholf was here," or "This is a monument, but not a good one." Scholars have spent years trying to decipher them. Some remain stumped, others simply laugh. You tuck the slat into a dry nook by the door. You'll reply tomorrow, maybe with a riddle, maybe with a drawing of that pig slightly rounder. Inside the fire is low, and most of the family is already snoring. You take a few embers from the hearth and feed them a splinter of birch to keep the warmth alive. Outside, the wind picks up, rattling the shutters like a nosy ant. You wrap yourself in a fur and sit beside the flame, thinking about runes and rivals and whether you should retaliate with poetry. A boy near the door shifts in his sleep and mutters about cows in the garden. You make a mental note to check for hoof prints come morning. Back at the fence, you know the carvings will fade in time, softened by weather, worn by fingers. But tonight they're fresh, and they glow faintly in your memory. The village lives through these small carved gestures. Not proclamations, but whispers in wood. Flirtations, pranks, private jokes, all etched into the very bones of your home. Some historians argue that rune carving was deeply spiritual, each symbol a sacred act. Others suggest it was closer to graffiti, born of boredom and sharp knives. The truth, as always, straddles the line. One person's blessing is another's punchline. You remember a fence post from last year, carved with a rune that meant, "Watch your turnips." No one ever figured out what that meant, but everyone laughed. For weeks. You reach for your knife and a small chip of pine. Just a few lines, nothing serious. But enough to answer. Enough to say I saw yours. Enough to remind them two can play at this game. You carve slowly, smiling as you work. A spiral here, a triangle there, and a mark that might be a squirrel doing something impolite. Perfect. Outside, the wind quiets. The fence stands tall, adorned with laughter. And tomorrow, someone will find your reply and grin. The dialogue continues, silent, sharp, and carved in wood. The wind smells like smoke and fish skin harbingers of the season to come. You stretch your back and step into the storage hut where the floor is dusted with sawdust and old ambitions. A coil of rope nearly trips you. Everything is half mended, half packed, or half forgotten. It's late autumn, time to prepare for the long sleep. You start by checking the nets. They're tangled. Of course, one has twigs in it, another smells suspiciously like cheese. You sigh and begin the ritual of mending fingers, moving through the frayed cords with the ease of someone who's done this 1,000 times. You tie, twist, and squint, hoping each knot will hold through the first ice-thick storm. Outside, someone is gutting fish with methodical urgency. The scent is sharp and familiar, curling through the air like a warning and a comfort. Rows of drying racks sway in the breeze, each strung with glistening silver slivers. You pass your uncle as he salts a particularly stubborn trout. He grunts a greeting and gestures at the fire pit, where the smokehouse waits with open arms and no patience. You haul baskets, fish wool, more fish, and begin stacking them inside. The smoke stings your eyes, but you know the rhythm. The trick is low-heat patience and arguing about technique in hushed tones. Some swear by birch bark, others insist on pine cones. Everyone agrees you're doing it wrong until they taste it. The older villagers take inventory by instinct. "That's about 4 months of stew," one mutters, eyeing a barrel. 3 if we get unexpected guests. 2 if Gorm keeps eating like a goat. You smile. Gorm's already napping beside the barrel. Scholars remain uncertain about how accurate Viking seasonal preparations truly were. Some evidence suggests elaborate planning and communal stockpiles. Other digs reveal famine graves and desperate foraging. The truth likely shifts with the latitude and the personality of the cook. You turn to the barn, counting sheep aloud. 14, 15, 15 and a half. No, wait. That one was just lying funny. You recount then, sigh. They never stand still. You chalk the number on the side of the door with a bit of charcoal, knowing full well it'll smudge by morning. A child nearby is stuffing herbs into cloth bundles. Rosemary, thyme, maybe some hemlock for drama. You nod approvingly. The bundles go above beds, under boots, into stew pots, or in someone's hair if they feel festive. The line between medicine seasoning and superstition is charmingly thin. Someone finds a cracked spoon and declares it a bad omen. Another replies that it's just a bad spoon. They compromise by burning it. Fair enough. The sun slips low, painting the field in a gold that feels too soft for how hard this work is. You feel it in your arms, your knees, your spine. But there's also pride, quiet, unspoken, but sturdy as the smokehouse. Tomorrow you'll pickle something, or patch something, or realize you forgot something. But for now, you cross one more thing off the invisible list, and count the sheep again, just in case. The fire has burned low, humming softly as it licks the last logs into glowing coals. You pull your cloak tighter and settle onto the fur-strewn sleeping bench, the wood creaking under your weight, like it too is winding down. Above you the rafters loom, a tangle of beams, cobwebs, and dried herbs tied in hopeful knots. Somewhere, a drip plinks into a bucket from a crack in the thatch. It's almost musical. Almost. Your breath fogs faintly in the air. The warmth from the hearth is fading, but the blankets trap just enough heat to make sleep feel possible. Not luxurious, just earned. You wiggle deeper beneath the furs, one leg twisted like you're wrestling a ghost. The smell of old wool, smoked fish, and pine sap lingers around you like a lullaby. Not everyone's idea of comfort, but you've had worse. A baby hiccups from the far end of the hut, the sound swallowed by soft snoring, and the occasional muttered dream. Someone turns over and coughs once. You smile. The night orchestra has begun. Outside, the wind picks up again. It brushes the walls like a story trying to get in. The animals rustle, shifting in their stalls. You wonder if the goats dream or if they just plot. Either way, they're quiet for now. The embers crackle once more, a final sleepy protest. You stare at the shadows they cast, watching them stretch and yawn across the ceiling. One looks like a horse. Another looks like your neighbor's smug sheep. You close your eyes before it can say anything rude. Historians rarely dwell on Viking sleep. Beds have been found in graves sometimes elaborately carved, sometimes shockingly plain. Bedding sparse. Pillows optional. But what they do know is that Vikings often slept communally, warmth shared like breath and gossip. Privacy was rare. Comfort came in layers, not solitude. Your fur blanket itches, but not enough to move. You curl your toes and listen to the rhythm of the house, breath, wind, wood drip. No more runes to carve, no more chores to chase. Just sleep, hovering at the edge like a wary guest. The roof creaks above you. A mouse scurries across a beam, dislodging a dried bay leaf. It flutters down and lands near your face. You flick it away gently and murmur something between a curse and a thank you. The mouse, satisfied, vanishes. Outside, the moon shifts behind clouds. The cold pushes harder at the walls, but inside, it's still. It's safe. It's enough. Your thoughts drift first to the fence post runes, then the stew, then to a half-finished story your aunt began before dinner. Something about a fox who tricked a bear out of its fur. You'll ask her how it ends tomorrow, or maybe the next day. For now, you let the night pull you under. No raids, no gods, no poems to memorize. Just furs flickering shadows, and the slow exhale of a village finally at rest. The coals in the hearth dim to a soft orange, casting the last gentle flickers across your sleeping face. Outside, the wind no longer howls, its sighs tracing the roof with slow, invisible fingers. The walls of the hut seem to settle with you, wood relaxing after a long day, fur blankets curled like quiet companions. The village sleeps not in silence, but in rhythm, snores, rustles, breaths, sinking like distant drums in a story long forgotten. You feel it in your limbs, now the weight of a day well spent. The fish dried the wool, woven the rumors shared, the fence repaired for now. The smell of smoke and stew lingers sweetly in the air, and you carry the memory of carved runes and crusty oat cakes into your dreams. There's no more need to remember the chores or plan tomorrow's list. That can wait. Tonight belongs to warmth and stillness and the soft hush of Viking sleep beneath a low, creaking rafter. If you'd like to return to stories like this, you can always subscribe quietly, of course. But before you drift off, tell me, where are you? What time is it? And who's your favorite forgotten historical figure?